Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. What do we have in store for you on this edition of the program? Well, here we go, baby. Conference championship call sheet. 5 Power 5 in the group of 5. Tulane playing for a spot amongst, what, the legends or at least the big boys? Took advantage of it last year. That's what's at stake in the group of 5. What Toledo could sneak their way in here maybe. So that's the discussion on that end of the group of 5. Power 5, the one conference I think winning your in's the Pac-12. The other one that the winner probably going to get in is the SEC maybe. But it's also the one that I think could get left out if the favorite doesn't win. The favorite wins in the other conferences, they're going to be in. Georgia wins, they're in. We know how this works, but I'm going to look at what we expect to take place this weekend. Also, a little DeLorean discussion. We're going to hop into the future, grab next year's principles, bring them to this year. We're going to have a discussion of what a 12-team playoff would look like today. I went through and looked. This is what I'm going to tell you what our discussion would be going into this weekend if we had a 12-team playoff, what we'd really be talking about. So we're going to dive into that. Harbaugh hot seat, as in he's getting up and leaving. Bears and Panthers interested. What's the better job? Both have a quarterback in-house. May not be sold. The Bears have a collection of draft picks. The Panthers don't. Is it Sam Seinfeld delivered that the Bears are that much of a better job? You can look at that as well. And, of course, a little NFL fact sheet for you. The 3 matchups that go a long way in determining the playoff picture in the NFL this weekend and also the MVP race. Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram. Check us out via the social media platforms there. Auditory route, Harp on Sports, the Bar, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcasts under the Harp on Sports, the Bar heading. Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, and of course, harponsports.com. Okay, conference championship weekend. Here we go. Buckle up. I look at these, and I'm going to go in order of which I think is going to be the biggest dud to the one that's going to be the most competitive. I think we're all in agreement. Iowa's got no shot to beat Michigan, but the spread, when you get over 20 points, is at 22.5 right now. That's a ton. That's a ton in a game like that. I know that Vegas has Iowa's over under a half a point for the first half. Look, I get it. They can't score. They struggle to score. And Michigan's coming off a gigantic win. They taste it. They're 60 minutes away to head back to the college football playoff. Jim Harbaugh is going to be back. I think they win. And like McCarthy and their ability to run the ball, Iowa's not going to be able to keep up for 60 minutes. They skull drug them last year. They'll beat them again this year, but it's not going to be nearly a smoke job that it was in seasons past. I think Iowa's defense is better than it was last year. The offense is worse, but the defense is better. When it's all said and done, of course, I'm going to take Michigan to win, but give me Iowa in the 23. I got the Wolverines in Indianapolis Saturday night, winning the Big Ten championship 28-10. So give me Michigan, not to cover, but Michigan punches their ticket to the college football playoff. Next game, in terms of closest, and I thought about this, and I wanted to do it so much, but I didn't. I wanted to make the Pac-12 the next biggest blowout. I just didn't have my heart of hearts to do it. I'm going to say Texas takes care of Oklahoma State. I don't want to say convincingly. I'll take Oklahoma State in the 15. So here I go again, a double-digit win. But Quinn Ewers coming back and Texas' ability to run the ball. Oklahoma State hasn't looked great the last 3 or 4 weeks here. And they do find their way into this. I think they'll play inspired. But when it's all said and done, Steve Sarkisian, maybe the coach of the year in college football with the job that he's done. It's a very quiet 11-1 Texas football team, right? Texas football team, Texas could be 12-1. All these years talking about is Texas back? Is Texas back? The answer is yes. And I think they check their box too. Texas takes care of business. They thump Oregon State 35-24, but give me Oregon State in 15. That's a lot. I think Oregon, look, Washington's been that team that's been playing with fire a little bit, and they've gotten away with it. Oregon has looked great. The last 6 weeks, Oregon has looked fantastic, and I think they continue to roll. I think Bo Nix wins the Heisman this weekend. I do. He's going to be a prime time Friday night. Nobody else around. Jaden Daniels did a great job, put up some gaudy numbers. Very impressive what Jaden Daniels did this year. If he doesn't get hurt in the second half of the Alabama game, who knows where LSU is? Who knows how this season pans out a little bit more for LSU? But when it's all said and done, Bo Nix, I think, is going to be responsible for 4 touchdowns. And he's going to be sitting there with 40 touchdowns and 2 or 3 picks at the end of the year. Going to have Oregon in the college football playoff. Going to play well on the big stage. I think the Pac-12 gets back-to-back Heisman winners. Give me Bo Nix winning the Heisman. 34-24. Oregon takes care of Washington, giving up the 8.5. Florida State Louisville is the one that we kind of forget about in this whole shuffle. We shouldn't. I know Florida State hasn't looked great. They didn't look great against Florida, but halfway through the second quarter, they ran roughshod pretty much, didn't they? The final 38, 39 minutes of that game, they controlled it. And yeah, with a new quarterback on the road in a rivalry game, he was gun shy. But their defense was strong and phenomenal, and they exerted their will. And Florida State, again, is an example of a team that's not a championship team, but they're winners. You can be a winner and not a champion. And that's what Florida State is. Everybody's picking Louisville. What's funny is the spread started off at 3.5 Florida State, and it shrunk down to what, half? 1.5. I think Florida State wins. Florida State covers. It can be Florida 24, Louisville 21. Florida State punches their ticket. And then the big one, the SEC, Alabama and Georgia. Georgia may have been a little lethargic against Georgia Tech, but Kirby didn't play everybody. But never did I feel uh-oh in that. Alabama's lucky. I do think that'll allow Nick Saban to refocus. And a couple years ago, they just absolutely drilled Georgia in this setting 2 years ago. Not going to happen this year. Kirby's going to be able to point to that from 2 years ago, single that out, circle that. Remember, Georgia drilled LSU last year. So we have ourselves a situation where Georgia's heading back to another SEC championship game. What is it, the 6th in 7 years that Georgia's been to now? Florida sticking their nose in there in 2020. And next year the divisions change, and it's probably have the same 2 teams back here again. But I haven't seen anything with Brock Bowers back now. I haven't seen anything from Alabama that makes me think they're going to stop Georgia. Couldn't stop Auburn at times. So give me Georgia 31-21 over Alabama. What's the spread here? 4? I give Alabama the 4. I think Georgia takes care of business. So when the committee rolls its little bad boy out, and we can discuss this on the weekend podcast heading into this week, Georgia 1, Michigan 2, Florida State 3, Oregon 4. Texas on the outside looking in. That's where you're going to be. Florida State wins, Texas is in. That's what this determines. Alabama beats Georgia, then you have yourself a whole other discussion. Right? It's easy just to slide Texas and it is Texas and Bama in and boot Oregon out, but there you go. 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, 3 Florida State, 4 Oregon. Here's your college football playoff. I wanted to do this because I wanted to pivot into what I am calling my DeLorean discussion. Let's fast forward a year from now. Using the principles of the college football playoff, the 5 highest ranked conference champions are in. Here's what our discussion would sound like with a 12-team playoff, all right? I should put on my future goggles. Don't really have any. Here's what we'd be discussing. All right, Tulane, with a win over SMU, they're the 12 seed. Tulane win over SMU, they're the 12 seed. They will travel on the road. Looking at everything else, what's at stake here? A Georgia win, they're hosting. Kind of just a little bit like the college football playoff. The 4 teams that you're jostling here for are playing for hosting positions. So under my thought process of what I just went through and told you that I think Georgia wins, I think Michigan wins, I think Florida State wins, I think Oregon wins, and I think Texas wins. Under that process, then what we're saying is the 5 highest ranked conference champions are in automatically. That doesn't mean they're all in hosting automatically. Now, the Pac-12 is going to be gone, but for this purpose, we're going to pretend that the Pac-12 is there, and it's the 6th highest ranked conference champions. So here we go. The 1 seed is Georgia. They have a bye. 2 seeds Michigan. They have a bye. The 3rd seed is Florida State. They have a bye. The 4th seed is Oregon. They have a bye. 5th seed Texas hosts 12th seed Tulane. There's your first one. Here's your next thing. Okay, 6-11. Here's where your debates begin. Alabama lost. Louisville losing to Florida State knocks them completely out of it. Alabama's loss does not knock them out of it. Ohio State didn't play. So we got to determine who's the 6th seed going to be. Who's the 6th seed hosting here? Is the 6th seed Washington, who lost? Is the 6th seed Ohio State, who didn't play? Who's the 6th seed? Is it? Who is it? So again, as I go through it, I look at this. 1, Georgia, the byes are Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, Florida State. Not necessarily in that order, but there you go. 5 is Texas, 5, 12. There you go. Okay. 2 conference champions there then. 6-11 would be what? 6-11 under this scenario, this weekend. 6-11 would be Ohio State hosting. Here are your picks down here at the bottom. Ohio State would be your 6th seed under this discussion. Or would it be Washington? Washington, Ohio State would be 6-7. That means Alabama's 8? Or are you going to take a school like Missouri or Penn State and move them ahead of Alabama? You're probably not. So let's, for the argument's sake here, let's say 6 is Washington, 7 is Ohio State. So 6 Washington, 7 Ohio State, 8 Alabama. 6 Washington, 7 Ohio State, 8 Bama. So Bama's hosting who? 9, 10, 11. So we're going to figure out who 9, 10, and 11 are. Who's 9, 10, and 11? So we have Missouri, Penn State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, LSU, Arizona. We're going to pick 3 of those teams. That's what the college football playoff 12-team discussion would be. Using a 12-team playoff now. Our discussion would be, okay, 5, Texas, hosting 11 or 12, Tulane. Okay, 6, Washington, 7, Ohio State, 8, Bama. Who do they host? 6, Washington. Ole Miss, Oklahoma. You got to determine who your 3 teams are going to be. Would there be a push to get Jaden Daniels in this sucker? I think there would be. Do you put a 3? I mean, Penn State obviously has the best loss resume. Penn State's both losses are the teams up here. Alabama's both losses are the teams up here. So, okay, Washington 6. Let's work this back then. Penn State's 2 losses. Penn State's got to be 9, right? So Penn State goes to Alabama. Who's 10? Missouri, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Arizona, LSU. LSU beat Florida State. LSU lost to Alabama. LSU beat Missouri. 9-3 LSU and over 10-2 Missouri. Here's our discussion. So, Ole Miss, they get drilled at the end of the year by Georgia. Oklahoma's sitting there at 2 losses. They beat Texas, who's in this sucker. Arizona, I think we can cross Arizona off. Penn State's in. So your discussions for 2 spots are now LSU, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Missouri for 10 and 11. So what I would do, seriously, if I were ranking these other 2 teams in here and how they've played and what they've done, I think LSU's a better football team than Ole Miss and Missouri. Well, Seth, yeah, I do. Ole Miss beat LSU. Okay, I guess we can. Then Ole Miss, Missouri, Oklahoma. Well, let's just put Oklahoma in here to be safe. Let's go Oklahoma 10. So Oklahoma's going to go to Ohio State in 11. Who's going to Washington? LSU, Ole Miss, and Missouri. Got to pick one of those 3 because you put another SEC team in here. So using the law of averages, Ole Miss beat Missouri. Ole Miss beat LSU. Okay, Ole Miss. So the college football playoff, if you're looking at it by eyeball, head-to-head, best resume, body of work, your debate would be LSU, Arizona, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Missouri, Penn State for those 3 spots. And then just who's going to go where. So our college football playoff with 12 teams would be what? Georgia 1 seed, bye. Michigan 2 seed, bye. Florida State 3 seed, bye. 4 seed, bye belongs to Oregon. 5th seed Texas hosts Tulane as the 12. 6th seed Washington hosts 11th seed Ole Miss. 7th seed Ohio State hosts 10 Oklahoma. And 8th seed Bama hosts 9 Penn State. There's your 12. Bama Penn State winner plays what? Oregon. Washington Ole Miss winner plays who? Florida State. Ohio State Oklahoma winner plays Michigan. And then Georgia plays Bama Penn State. See the issue? You're gonna have rematches right on top of rematches. You try to avoid that if you can. So you could technically flip Ohio State and Bama, but then you got Ohio State playing Penn State again. The one thing is it's gonna be like the NFL where you play each other in the regular season, turn around and play each other in the postseason. You're gonna see a lot more of that. But there you go. Thought we'd have a little fun with that. A little DeLorean discussion here on Harp on Sports. We'll see. But the one thing that's a lock is Tulane is the 12. If Tulane loses, then is it Toledo? Do you put SMU there? Yeah. All right. Jim Harbaugh, really quick before I get to the NFL. Little NFL fact sheet going into the weekend, the 3 games that mean a lot. Harbaugh, here we go. Carolina or the Bears. 2 teams that are interested. In Carolina, Dave Tepper, they had deep discussions last year. Does he swing around and not take no for an answer? I'd love to see Jim Harbaugh as the Bears head coach. Love to see it. Love to see it with Justin Fields. I'd love to see it because if you're Jim Harbaugh, you're head coach of the Bears, you're going to get the Panthers pick. And you're going to have your pick. And depending on how you trade it and how you move around or what you want to do, you could really set yourself up for the future. But if you stay put, you may be looking at, if I were the Bears, 2 guys I'd target in the top 10 would be Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brock Bowers. Could you imagine if I had DJ Moore on one side, Marvin Harrison Jr. on the other, and I could run Brock Bowers down the middle, and I got Justin Fields at quarterback, use my second round pick, what is it, whatever the pick it would be in the second round, 38th overall, 39th overall. I use that on the best offensive lineman available. Now I can protect Justin Fields. I've got 2 marquee weapons on the outside and the best prospect at tight end coming out of the NFL draft since Kyle Pitts, but it's Travis Kelce 2.0. That's what I'm thinking if I'm Jim Harbaugh. Carolina, I've got what? I've got Bryce Young, and I don't have a first-round draft pick. Bears have 2. Now, if I'm the Bears, I'm in a division with the Lions, who've kind of figured it out. Vikings, who don't have a quarterback. Packers, who Jordan Love, I know that people love him this week, but we'll see what it looks like next week. But if I'm in the Carolina Panthers division, I've got the Bucks, who don't have any idea what they're doing. The Falcons, who don't have a quarterback. And the Saints. So the weaker the division is obviously the NFC South, but it's an interesting dilemma. But to me, the Bears 2 top 10 picks, and there's where I swing it. All right, a little NFL fact sheet before we wrap this sucker up, and the 3 games that swing the pendulum this week in the NFL. The third one I have on the list is the Broncos and the Texans. Broncos and the Texans, you have 2 teams that are above 500. This would be for the last playoff spot in the AFC. Why is that dangerous? Because Russell Wilson or CJ Stroud on the road right now against 2. Right now they'd be on the road against Kansas City because the Ravens would have the 1 seed based on record. But boy, if I am the Chiefs, the Ravens, or the Jaguars, or the Dolphins, I got news for you. Russell Wilson, I do not want to see Russell Wilson in this Denver Bronco defense coming into my pad week 1 of the postseason. Not the way they're playing, especially if I'm the Dolphins. What I did to them 2 months ago, skull dragging them, embarrassing them, they're 5-1 since then. So the winner of this game going to be in prime position to be a wild card team in the AFC. I don't think the Texans can catch the Jags now that they lost to them last weekend, and the Broncos aren't going to catch the Chiefs. The winner of this game is in at the bottom end of the playoff. The loser's going to have a tough time. Losers are going to need to catch some breaks down the stretch. Losers are going to be 6-6 and probably have to go 4-1 to have a crack at it. So that's the third game on our list of the NFL fact sheet going into the weekend. Second game on the list are the Chiefs and the Packers. And the Chiefs and the Packers are on the list for this. Packers are going to have 10 full days off. Packers can be in second place in the NFC North by the end of the night, Sunday night. Vikings have given a couple back. Why is that important? Well, it's important because can the Packers track down the Lions? And not only can the Packers track down the Lions, you look at the rest of the NFC. The rest of the NFC, the wild card structure, after you get outside of the Cowboys, is not that great. It's not. Cowboys are the 5th seed, 6th, 7th, 8th. When you look at the wild card standings down there, the Packers with a win, all of a sudden you start to circle those wagons as the 6th seed in the NFL. What does the 6th seed get you in the NFL? Get you back into Detroit. Because 1's going to be the Philly and 2's going to be San Francisco or vice versa. So the Chiefs and the Packers for that reason. And the other reason, maybe even more profound, if the Packers beat the Chiefs, then all of a sudden it's starting to look like the AFC's not going through Kansas City. That's why that game's important. Green Bay's red hot. They're at home. They have extra time. The Chiefs are coming in. Seemingly figured it out against the Raiders, but And, of course, the biggest one of the weekends, the 49ers and the Eagles. Eagles are an underdog out there at out in San Francisco. Boy, the Eagles, talk about a tough stretch. At Kansas City, back home to Buffalo, back out to San Francisco. And the Cowboys are waiting in the wings. 49ers, Eagles. The Eagles win that. You can pretty much kiss the 1 seed's wrapped up, isn't it? Barring major injuries. If the Cowboys trying to track down the Eagles, if the 49ers can beat the Eagles, then the 49ers are a game back of Philly. The Cowboys have a game against Philly coming up. You start to lay out scenarios the last month where the Eagles could end up not winning that division and be the 5 seed. Eagles take care of business against the 49ers. Then the Cowboys game is an goodbye. They beat the Cowboys. The 1 seed's over. Maybe over already. That's gigantic. Jalen Hurts. You have 3 Heisman. You have 3 MVP candidates on the field in that game. Jalen Hurts trying to peek into that MVP category. We did this last week where there are 8 MVP candidates. 3 of them. Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey. And, you look at the Chiefs in the pack. Patrick Mahomes wants to get back into the MVP race. There you go. Sunday night, he puts on a show in Green Bay and get right back into it as well. That 49ers-Eagles game, the Chiefs-Eagles game was gigantic a couple weeks ago for a variety of reasons. If the Eagles win this sucker, I don't see any scenario in which Eagles aren't the 1 seed. Yeah, they could lose and the Cowboys could beat them and there's no scenario in which the Cowboys have to win out. So, here's your NFL fact sheet heading into the first weekend in December. There you go. Harp on Sports, the Bar, podcast, media, audio, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe at Harp on Sports Twitter, at Harp on Sports Instagram, Harp on Sports, Auditory Route, Buzzsprout, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel, and of course, harponsports.com. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein. Have fun with your friends.